I normally don't make videos about flight crashes, but this one is different. This is a video about how AI-171 crashed according to the initial report. The reason I'm making this video is because I normally travel with Air India quite a lot, because I used to go from India to London Gatwick or London Heathrow. So this route is quite similar to me, or quite known to me. So when I heard that the flight crashed, I was really shook. So I really want to make a video about it, and this is the video about how it would have crashed according to the initial report. Okay, so when I looked at the initial report, I was kind of shook because of the reason. I'll be explaining about the reason right now. So about the pilots, there were two of them in the cockpit of the accident flight. The captain was a 56-year-old male. He had an ATPL license, so he was the pilot in command of the flight. He flew the TB20 BEC-152, A310 and Boeing 777, as well as the accident flight itself, Boeing 787. He was quite an experienced pilot. He had about 15,640 hours under his belt and 8,600 on the type. Now about the first officer. So the first officer was a 32-year-old male. He had a CPL license and he was significantly less experienced than the captain. He had only 3,403 hours total with 1,128 on the type. He had been pilot in command for C-172 and PA-34, as he operated as a co-pilot for A320 and the Boeing 787. So the AI-171 landed at Ahmedabad on June 12th from Delhi. So the plane's crew wrote down in the pilot defect report as STAB-POS XTCR, which is a sensor in the plane. The troubleshooting was carried out as per procedures, and the flight was released at 6:40 UTC. Now, about the accident flight, the aircraft was scheduled to operate as AI-171 from Ahmedabad to Gatwick, with the estimated time of departure as 7:40 UTC. The flight was to be operated by the flight crew of the two pilots, ATPL holder as pilot in command and the CPL holder as the first officer or the co-pilot, along with 10 cabin crews. Both the pilots were based on Mumbai and had arrived at Ahmedabad the day before. They had adequate rest periods, and rest wasn't really a matter in this flight. So the captain and the first officer decided that the first officer would be the pilot flying and the pilot in command, and the captain would be the pilot monitoring for the flight. The crew of AI-171 arrived at the airport and underwent a pre-flight breath analysis test, and they were found fit to fly. The crew is seen arriving and boarding the flight at about 7:05 UTC. There were 230 passengers on board with 10 cabin crew and 2 pilots. The fuel on board was 52,200 kilograms, and the total weight of the aircraft would be 213,401 kilograms, which was within the maxed allowed takeoff weight. The pilots decided that the V1 would be 153 knots, and the rotation speed would be 155 knots, and the V2 would be 162 knots. Now, if you guys don't know what V1 and V2 are, V1 is the decision speed of the aircraft, and the pilot in command or the captain would be responsible for rejecting the takeoff within or on this speed. The speed will be called out when it is reached by the pilot monitoring, and this was just normal procedures. From now, everything would be happening really quickly. At 7:43 UTC, the flight crew requested for pushback, and at 7:43 and 13 seconds, the ATC cleared them and approved for pushback. At 7:46, the ATC approved for startup, and at 7:49, the ATC asked the crew if they wanted the full length of the runway, and they confirmed that they wanted the full length of the runway. So the full length of the runway was about 3.5 kilometers or 3,500 meters. At 8:45, the flight lined up with the runway 23 at Ahmedabad airport. At 8:07 UTC, the flight was cleared for takeoff. As per the EAFR data, Enhanced Airborne Flight Recorder data, the aircraft passed its V1 speed at 8:08 UTC, and the rotation speed was achieved at 8:08 and 35 seconds UTC. The flight rotated at about 8:39 seconds UTC, and as far as this was going, the flight was completely normal and as per procedure. The aircraft achieved its maximum speed recorded at 180 knots at 8:42 seconds UTC. After this, the engine 1's fuel's cutoff switch was transitioned from run to cutoff, with then followed by the engine 2's fuel cutoff switch from run to cutoff within the span of 1 second. The flight's N1 and N2 values rolled back from the takeoff position, fuel needed to as the fuel was cut off from the engine. So what is the N1 and N2? The N1 refers to the rotational speed of the low pressure compressor, LPC, and the engine's fan section. This is the large visible component of the front of the engine and generates most of its thrust. And the N2 this indicates the rotational speed of the high pressure compressor located further back within the engine's core. You can see them in the picture I have given. In the cockpit voice recorder, it is heard that one of the pilots, we don't know which pilot and it has not been specified in the report, but one of the pilots asking the other why he cut it off, and the other pilot responded with, "I didn't do so." The CCTV footage obtained from the airport shows that the rammer turbine RAT being deployed immediately after liftoff, and as per the EAFR data, the fuel cutoff switch is transitioned again from cutoff to run, followed by engine 2's. Engine 1's was transitioned first, then engine 2, but it was already too late. The flight started losing altitude, and one of the pilots transmitted "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday." It isn't specified which pilot, but one of the pilot is heard transmitting "Mayday," and before the ATC got any more responses or any more things, the ATC saw the flight crash outside of the airport. At 8:44 UTC, the emergency crew were deployed from the airport, but at the end of the flight, at the end of the day, there was only one sole survivor. The flight crashed into a residential area, taking lives of the incident.